I'll try to start again if the dog lets me. No guarantees. So we're moving on to the large intestine. Again, it starts with the cecum. Then you have the ascending, transverse, descending colons. The ascending and the descending colon are much of them are retroperitoneal. Again, stability points. The cecum is the entry point. We call it the ileocecal valve between the terminal portion of the small intestine, the ileum, again, ileum, and what projects off of that, projecting not so much downward, but centrally toward the umbilicus, is the appendix, known as the vermiform, vermiform. Appendix is like a little worm. It's twisted a little bit, and that's why stuff gets trapped in there. And the basic, and again, just to reinforce the point, it's lymphatic tissue, but it's less about guarding against infection, a la Peyer's patches or this collective mass of stuff we call GALT, gut-associated lymphoid tissue, which is a little part of MALT, that mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue. The current belief, and why it's more important to leave it there if we can avoid having to take it out in case stuff gets trapped and infected, is it recedes the gut with bacteria, which is so important. It recedes the small and rather the large intestine, and that bacteria plays a pivotal role in not just finalizing feces, but really from vitamin production and a variety of other things, electrolytes, reabsorption. And so that bacteria is really a significant feature that's associated with it. I make kind of a bigger point with regard to that in micro, and whether Dr. Maurer made that point to you or not, but read up about it. Gut bacteria is pretty interesting. And we're paying a lot more attention with things like prebiotics and probiotics and things like that. The importance of those is becoming much more significant, as it will. Remember the three hallmarks you have? You have basically, you have, okay, each of the segments is called a house drum. The plural is haustra. The cecum is the first one of those. And you have that what they call the tendon of the colon, tinea coli, which is really three bands of small, smooth muscle that help it retain that significant shape as it surrounds the small, and the multiple folding and compacting, twisting and turning, so to speak, of the small intestine. And then lastly, the epiploic appendages. Those are little droplets of fatty material. Not quite sure what their purpose is. They're fatty. They're really, again, a mesentery-like tissue that surrounds it. Rather, it's there's nothing really specific that I can give you about that. Just the name is epiploic appendages. One thing that does happen as we age is effectively the muscular structures begin to weaken, particularly associated with diet, heredity. And I did make a big point about it before. They are called diverticuli. Again, it's like a bubble in a tire. We get a lot of that. It's a tube system, and sometimes there's a weakness in the wall in the tube and something out pouches. This is really where the smooth muscle is breached and the outer covering is breached, and you get a little pocket of the lining, and stuff gets trapped in there. It's called diverticulitis and gets infected, or diverticulosis, and even it can burst. And these are really a significant problem that are associated with aging. There. So you should be familiar with those. Again, I forgot about the blood supply that's so unique from the small intestine to and the large intestine and from the stomach. Remember, that's the hepatic portal system. Again, it's a double capillary. The capillaries are coming from the bowel, collected by a vein. Rather than going back to the heart, they have to go to the liver. That's the hepatic portal vein. Then they go through yet another capillary bed. Those are all those sinusoids that are in the liver, and then they're carried on into the hepatic vein, which joins the vena cava. Then it goes back to the heart, effectively filtering it, rinsing it, detoxifying it, processing it, or pre-processing it before it makes its way back to the vena cava. That's such an important thing. I mean, I can't stress how important that is enough. Again, the capillaries themselves those are sinusoidal capillaries. They're very unique in that regard. Don't forget all of those neat things with the bowel. Okay, the small bowel particularly. You have again, the way that things move through it, you have the villi, you have the microvilli, you have those circular folds we call plica circularis. So the food doesn't just pass through in a linear fashion, it swirls around, sort of spirals its way down for maximum contact within, and it gives it all that enormous amount of surface area. Villi are those finger-like projections. Each one of those fingers has a lacteal, a lymphatic vessel, and is surrounded by a capillary net of, basically a series of capillaries around that. So the lymphatic structure basically absorbs the proteins and fatty, protein's the wrong word. Sometimes protein laden and fatty structures that come there. Unfortunately, also things like bacteria and viruses can join into the party that way. And things that absorb well into the bloodstream are absorbed by the capillary bed. So each of those fingers and the microvilli, each of those fingers are surrounded by simple columnar cells filled with microvilli. So it's a giant amount of surface area. That whole thing about being effectively a garden hose that you open up, it's maybe 20 feet long, and it's got the surface area with all those folds of a tennis court. It's quite amazing in that regard. And again, the sinusoidal capillaries are we find in the liver. The liver, the signature are those hepatic globules. They're all identical. And basically, I like to use the term, it percolates through. That venous blood from the hepatic portal vein goes through those sinusoidal capillaries. The hepatic cells are effectively all identical. And so you have that sort of a triad that ends from all the 6 points of that hexagon. And so you have endocytosis. Thank you, Lincoln. Again. I want to finish this thought before I get into another system. Hold on, please, while he finishes working. What enters there is thank you. Doofus. Look at Doofus. I'll try again later. Sorry about this.